Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Bunker Show, our first of 2016. We hope you've all had a lovely new year, and it's great to be back at you, coming at you live and direct here from our secret bunker hidden beneath the sewers of Westminster. And here, as always, bright, beautiful, and brilliant for 2016 with a big silly grin, here's Helen.
Good evening all. Really happy to be here in 2016 and really happy to have our guest here tonight and looking forward to this show.
And as always, helping us wade through the spin and the psychobabble and bring some sense into the bunker, here's Jimmy.
Yeah, I'm glad to see we survived 2015, and it's lovely to be back here in 2016. Looking forward to talking tonight.
And without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my guest, who I met a couple of months ago, and has been up to some really quite interesting things in that time. And that's Soulfire. Hi, Soul.
Hi, how you doing?
We're all doing very well. Thanks ever so much for joining us in the bunker. I met you a couple of months ago in London on November the 5th, and you're quite active. It's the Million Mask March, which is where people from all over the world who have either local issues or wish to campaign about transparency and responsiveness from the authorities go out and get their voices heard. So how come you've decided to be proactive? How did you first start getting proactive? And what have you been involved in?
Okay, so I got involved 2 years ago. First one at the Million Mask March. I went with some friends from Glastonbury. Felt very strongly about some of the issues that our local governments and things are doing with people in general, the way they're targeting poor people, all the craziness up and down the UK and around the world. And I thought it was time to make a stand with the brothers and sisters and get on it and try and help sort this out. And, you know, as many of us can get together and show the government that actually we don't want all this chaos and all the crap that they keep throwing at us. And I think it's a good time for everyone to sort of sit up and take a stand, really. And that's how I kind of got involved. November just gone is when I met you guys. It's my second time out. There's a lot of talk about police brutality and what goes on, and you know, the media tries to hide all this type of stuff, but actually it does go on. I was quite shocked to see it this year, how bad it was firsthand and what the tactics are. And to be honest with you, it's very disgraceful, very disgraceful.
Yeah, and especially when you're an observant, patient person you're there for compassionate reasons, and when you see some of the ways in which people are provoked and treated more like cattle than people exercising their democratic right and participating in trying to make the world a better place, that can be quite a scary thing. But it's also very, very empowering to actually get your voice heard and you know, make a statement, especially, as you say, with some of the cuts that are affecting local services and some of the most vulnerable people who don't have a voice. It's very important to go and assist them in getting that voice.
That's
and
right.
do you think that November the 5th is useful for serving that purpose?
I think so, yeah. Whilst being out on the march, it was evident to see that actually the police keep changing the rules of what you can and can't do in the time that I've spent there. Within a few hours, you know, you were allowed to wear the mask. Next minute, you weren't allowed to wear the mask, but you could still have it on your person. Then they changed it to actually you weren't allowed to have any mask on you. It was seen as a crime then. So they keep changing the rules minute by minute, even on the march. And I actually witnessed one lady that got attacked. They kettled a lot of people. She had a mask on, and as they sort of made a break to get out of this kettling, one officer actually struck her in the face to remove her mask, but actually knocked her to the floor. And, you know, it wasn't done very softly, it was done very aggressively. And to see a young woman like that hit to the floor in the face is absolutely disgusting.
I believe a number of people crowded round and were speaking out the officer's name. The police eventually withdrew from there after a minute or two when they realised that they were provoking a bit of a situation that they probably weren't going to be in control of.
No.
And it is interesting to see over the course of a number of years when people have gone to that march and a number of other marches that it does seem to be a little bit more heavy-handed in the way that they're attempting to deal with those types of peaceful protests.
Yeah, there's a lot of good people out there just want their voices to be heard, and you probably get the odd couple of youngsters who want to join in just to cause a bit of chaos, but what I've seen of it, everybody wants their voice to be heard in a fair way. And, this is set out to be a peaceful protest.
Well, I guess, if you take 10,000 people and you take them to the opera at Glyndebourne, somebody is going to drink too much, somebody's going to have an argument with their partner, somebody is going to misbehave. The same thing with a football match. And so I guess, we seemed like there are some, people almost twice my age, some of the disabled people wearing anonymous mask, a few young, sprightly people wearing anonymous masks, and that's interesting to see that much breadth of people and of feeling. That when you can communicate about exactly what's happening without filters, like we're able to do here on Dark City, like the Anonymous News Network and the Occupy News Network that we're very grateful for, occasionally carry the Bunker Show and restream it from Dark City. Those type of channels that enable people to live stream from the ground, enable people to interview are developing, and hopefully, as we'll get on to a little bit this evening, we'll be able to bring a perspective that people don't often get, and hopefully Anonymous will continue to do that. And so will you be going to November the 5th next year?
Definitely, yeah. And I encourage more people to do it. Definitely encourage people to do it. It's the way of getting our voice heard, and for the governments to see that actually the people don't want it. All these cuts, and for all the sort of poor people, elderly, young, the NHS, the banking system, the whole lot, it all, there's so much corruption and so many people are suffering as a result of greed. And, the nation is starting to wake up, I believe, and, we'll take control and say, look, come on, we need change. This ain't going to work for us like this.
And it'll be a Saturday. It'll be a Saturday next year as well, which will hopefully encourage more people to come out and, make their point about those, really quite troubling and serious issues that have real effects on people's lives. And
well, I've never actually been on one of the marches, and I've always intended to, but I've got a bit of a problem with crowds, and it's always, I have to admit, scared me a little. But you keep on speaking about people finding a voice, just in your experience, what would you say is a predominant issue on people's minds?
Are you still there, Sol?
Yep, sorry. Yep, still here.
Yeah, okay. I think we lost you just for a moment there. Jimmy was just asking, in terms of those things you mentioned, what do you think is what galvanizes most people to get up and actually take action?
People want fair play. They want the right to be able to sort of work and look after their family as best they can, go about their business. But many people are under so much pressure to work so many hours. The jobs are tying them up. The financial side of things going up in price. the taxes. There's just so many different things that all add up to, people being dropped to their knees. People are really starting to feel the pressure in this country, and I believe, that the people will stand up to make changes. But I think, there has to be a little bit of chaos in order for people to sort of rise up and stand up and say, actually, we don't need this, because if everyone just sat back and these marches never happened, then these things will continue. With the NHS and stuff like that. And the money spent on wars, the money that's spent on fighting other people's wars, could look after this country, and we don't need to be, partaking in other people's wars like that. And then we have, it brings us back to the refugees. Then, we're all going in to bomb these countries in the name of peace, and where will it end?
Yeah, I mean, that was something which seemed like a hugely strong undercurrent throughout the people at November the 5th. Was you take a decision to go and interfere in other countries many, many thousands of miles away. Yeah. There's more people there homeless, jobless, without law and order. And yet, at the time you're making those decisions, you walk half a mile out of Parliament, along Embankment, and you can see the people there who don't have homes, who don't have places to live. And, it's something that I think people, when they're often caught up in the media dialogue, forget that actually, if you're voting to take action in Syria now, you really need to explain that to the people, like I said, less than a mile down the river from Parliament.
Yeah, these guys are homeless. They have nothing. The little they have, like their sleeping bags or a ground sheet to lie on, has been confiscated from them, saying they're not allowed to have these. Even the homeless, they've got nothing. The one thing that keeps them warm, they're trying to take that off them. They're putting up these spikes under bridges and on public areas where they're trying to keep homeless from sleeping. What are you really going to do? How much more can you crucify somebody like this?
Yeah, and it's putting people out of sight to hopefully get them out of mind, and that's why it is important to acknowledge that is, a direct correlation. Is that you're spending money to put millions and millions of people out of their homes when you can actually put money into providing homes for people right here, or even opening up commercial buildings that aren't in use right here. We had a question from the chat room saying, in your estimate, how many people do you think were at the Anonymous March? How many people were marching past Downing Street to Parliament Square wearing the Anonymous masks?
It's hard to say. I mean,
it is quite tricky.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guesstimating 8,000-10,000 people, maybe more. I mean, it's sort of like as you're marching, the line sort of spreads out a bit, so it's hard to get a full picture of the whole thing once it gets going. But I really hope next time the numbers will double.
I'm Helen here at the moment. I think, and the one significant thing this year was the amount of police as well. In comparison to when I've been up other years, there was a huge amount of police on the streets.
Total overkill.
And really building up the anxiety and the aggression and the feeling that people were there for a fight. I didn't meet anyone on the march that was giving off that vibe, but
no, not at all.
The interactions we had with some of the people in uniform were indicating either they were just out because it was good money or because they were expecting a fight.
Exactly, that's what I heard too, And, there's people from all walks of life, all different ages, all coming to the march with their own causes and their own sort of struggles that they want to, peacefully demonstrate about, so there's quite a lot of different things that people are coming. But, people coming together because they want to be heard. They're sick of being bullied and pushed around and lied to and covered up, media blackouts, and, people are not hearing the truth. Even in the mainstream media, people are, trying to get the stories out, but it's either blacked out or they come up with some other crazy story that they think, well, people need to hear that, and the truth just lays somewhere else.
I think that's one of the interesting things that Anonymous does by having different ops. We've had people here from Op Safe Winter, which looks after vulnerable homeless people who are on the street, and I know that there was Op BBC, which is seeking transparency at the BBC in terms of their appointments and investigations and a number of such things. And we've had another question from the chat room: is do you think that Anonymous would be more effective if they had people from different ops meeting in different places in London, and then moving towards Parliament to create more of an impact?
To be fair, I mean, any way that people can get together to make a bigger impact, the better, I think. Yeah, you know, if it takes a lot of different groups to come together as one group in the end, I mean, that's great. I mean, however, which way they want to work it, I don't know who organises all these events and stuff, but the more people who feel it and can come out to these protests and march, the better. You know?
Well, it's interesting because we just drew a link between homelessness and Stop the War. In terms of those organisations, protest groups and support groups. So it's interesting to see that actually in today's world, not many issues are kind of dealt with in isolation. And it's good to be able to draw focus on, you know, a number of those important ones, as well as, you know, the overall need for transparency and accountability, especially as you said, with the media not necessarily being able to be trusted in the way that it once was, when you can hear the truth on a platform like right here at Dark City. And yet sometimes when you hear what's really happening on the ground to what is being spun through the mainstream, they're very, very different things. So, you know, I think it's how important do you think that role is of having people on the ground who can really see what is going on?
I think it's very important, and I encourage more people to do the same, you know, because there's not enough of it happening. There's stuff that's getting out, like you guys is reporting the truth behind things, and there needs to be a lot more of that. And people, you know, need to be aware of the options, that they can listen to the truth of it all, and not like the mainstream. So yeah, I encourage it more and more. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, and hopefully, people can will be able to get a bit of an insight about the reasons and why people do that, how effective that can be at changing their world and changing the world that we all live in, and are able to, like I say, share that with other people. Which, since I've met you, it seems like you've been very busy doing that, because you've spent some time in Calais. Yeah.
And that was quite an eye opener for me. To be fair, it really was an eye opener.
Well, I've come across a few reporters who report from the ground. One of them is Luke Wachowski of We Are Change, and he did a relatively short report from Calais where he said, "I've been to lots of different places around the world. I've been to the G8, the G20, but nothing quite prepared me for this." And he said it'll probably take a little while to work out exactly what the nature of what's going on here is. So, first of all, why did you, what spurred you to go and go to Calais and see what you can do?
I kind of picked up the links through friends I've made along the way, such as you guys. I've met other different people from up and down the country, and I started seeing these posts coming up about Calais and Dunkirk, and how bad the situation is out there, and it's all being kept quiet. The mainstream media is not really talking about it, but yet there are thousands of people there suffering. And I thought, well, can it really be as bad as they make out? And start seeing the posts and the photos, and people that's been out there daily, sending blogs and Twitter and putting messages on the social networks, and it's like, well, actually, that's horrific. And I felt a real need then to go out there to do what I could, to do what I can, and see how bad it is there, and then come back and let other people know that actually what is going on is horrific, and it shouldn't be allowed in this day and age. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
Well, it's as far as we've been able to see, there's the media showing that there's the mainstream showing that there's tension there and clashes between the people in the camp and the French paramilitary police, and yet when we've spoken, we had Janie Mack on the Bunker Show about a month or so ago, and she was talking a little bit about the diverse cultures that are there, and in some cases how quickly these people have gone from having full lives to being destitute many thousands of miles away from where they'd really like to be.
Yeah.
So when you first arrived there, did you have anybody to hook up with who could, I guess, show you the ropes and have a process for assisting with the people there?
Not as such. I kind of linked in with a group from Great Malvern, wonderful group of people. They're called People in Motion. Basically, what they do, they put out for as much aid as they can in every form, like blankets, clothes, food, shelter, tents, and then what they do, they've got a warehouse which they sort through, send it out van after van loads, and also they raise money for volunteers, to send volunteers out there to keep them working. So I linked in with them guys to start with, spent some time in the warehouse, helped sort, and then went across with one of their vans. But I didn't actually know anybody in the camp as such, and it was kind of a bit of a time for me to step out to the unknown, and but just went with my feelings that I've got to go and try and do something. And I went into the camp with a lot of fear in me. There's so many different nationalities there, because the way life is and the media portray these people. I went there with some fear. I didn't know what to expect. And then my first hour I was there, I met up with a young Syrian lad, 15. I met through some other guys that are volunteers out there, and sort of befriended him. And he said, "Come with me, I'll take you on a little walk round." And then I spent the next sort of couple of hours sat with him and about 15 other young guys. There's a few Egyptians. There's just they come to where they were camped out. That they got a little fire going, and what very little they had, they wanted to share. They talked about their stories. Most of them lost their families. Their goal is that they just want a peaceful life. They want to come to England, just so they can set up home and live a peaceful life and get jobs and work and, look after themselves. And so the fear that I had in me melted away within the first hour. And the whole time that I spent in Calais, I met person after person. They all greet you with a big smile. They want to shake your hand, and there's so many people out there that's got so many skills from all different levels. There's interior designers, there's teachers, there's people that have their own businesses, shops, restaurants, clothing, and these people have got good skills. It's not that, and some of them have a lot, some of them have money. It's not the fact that they're very poor people. It's just that the situation they're in, they're stuck beyond the borders there, and they're basically not allowed to live a simple life. They're living in such squalid and horrible conditions. It's heartbreaking. It truly is heartbreaking to see. And all these guys want, for their families and what's left of their families, is just somewhere to sort of live a peaceful life, work, contribute. And I think, we really need to help these guys.
Well, hi, mate. It's Jimmy here. I'm just curious. When you were talking to these people, did you get any sense that they had some sort of vision of an end game to the various conflicts that they were escaping from? Did they see any resolutions at all?
To be honest with you, the ones that I met, the only sort of real vision is they want, they just keep focusing on getting somewhere that's safe. I didn't really sort of talk to them about too much about like the conflicts between the countries and stuff. Although there was one incident, I think it was on my 5th day out in the camp in Calais. I was working in the medical caravans there, and there's, as always, there's a queue of people waiting to be seen with lots of different conditions. And there was 2 guys there. One was carrying a flag on a pole, and they sort of spoke in broken English. And one guy said to him, "What's this flag about that you're carrying? What's your plan here?" And he said, "It's a flag for protest." And the other guy responded quite sort of abruptly and sort of quite angry. He said, "Why do you want to do this in the camp? Why do you want to protest and cause problem in the camp? Our country's at war with each other. Why do you want to do this?" And he made it very clear, very quickly, that it's a white flag. It's for peace. They want to protest outside the camp of Calais to say, "Look, we're peaceful people. We don't want all this craziness and chaos." And they sort of looked at each other and said, "Look, we're brothers. It's our government's at war." He said, "We're people, we're brothers." And they locked arms, like arm to arm, and really sort of stared into each other's eyes and said, "Yeah, we're brothers. We don't want this." And I tell you, that moment brought tears to my eyes and a lump in my throat. I had to turn away because I was so choked up. And these guys, these are the real people. These guys don't want war. They've lost so many family. They've lost their homes, their businesses. They've lost everything that they built up and cared for, like their families, the generations before. It's just all been flattened. And to see that one little moment, it meant so much. And I wish the whole world could just see that one little minute of time there. It says 1,000, says in fact millions of words. I wish that could have been captured.
And it's quite a diverse. You mentioned Egypt and Syria. Janie said there's also people from sub-Saharan Africa, from Sudan, Eritrea, and so on. Countries that have obviously been on the wrong end of quite a lot of NATO activity. Mm-hmm. How do those cultural differences mingle within the camp? Because it seems that obviously having that many people of different cultures and ideas and being able to share some of those insights in the way that they obviously very emotionally did with with the story that you just said. Do you think that they're really that the people who are there? Do you think their current cultural differences cause divisiveness, or do you think that's something that they seem like they're overcoming?
To be honest with you, from what I've seen, they're overcoming. Like I say, with the medical queue, there's so many different nationalities there. Myself, I'm not good with other languages, so there was guys from each different nationalities actually sort of translating for other people in the queue, to try and get the message across and what was actually going on for them. So they were all working together in that one queue, from all over the world, trying to get. And I didn't see any hostility, any bad feelings between the different groups of people in the camp. I mean, I guess there might be a slight bit of tension, but I think under the circumstances where the conditions are so bad, and there's very little help from the governments and big agencies, I think there's going to be some, but no, I've never seen it myself personally. All what I've seen was a lot of people getting together, sharing what they have. Even in one of the restaurants I sat with, some of the guys there, young Syrian guys, were showing us their traditional dances. But in this camp, in this restaurant, there was I'd say probably about 5 or 6 different nationalities there. They were all showing us their sort of traditional dances and just sharing the music and smiling and that, enjoying each other's company and trying to keep warm.
Yeah,
so I don't see any hostility or any sort of bad feelings between different groups of people. No.
No, that's a really good, in some ways, reassuring thing to hear. In some ways, for people under that kind of pressure. I mean, you mentioned language. Is that a factor, do you think? Because English is spoken in many places around the world. It's often a second language that people know very well. the amount of big blockbuster films, again, all made in English. So do you think the fact that a number of those people have English is why they feel that this country is a good place to come to? United Kingdom is a place to come to, where they're capable of restarting their lives because they can actually speak the language, as it were.
Yeah, I think so. Some of them have already got family in this country. A lot of them hear great things that they want to come and work and live and bring up their families here. But a lot of the people I met did, understand some English, or predominantly a lot of them actually spoke, some good English, and the ones that didn't sort of translated between themselves, and but yeah, I don't see that as being part of a major problem.
Yeah, and in terms of, we're looking at the potential differences within the camp, but how is the people who live in the area and the camp, because the media sometimes attempts to make a lot of that particular issue. How did you notice that in terms of your time there?
Okay, now there's a few stories that I've heard. There's some local people nearby to Calais, but basically they're inciting a lot of problems and a lot of violence. There's one property in particular that I know of that has a ring of police vans around it. And when refugees come past, they're throwing missiles over the top of the French police of all kinds, trying to incite some trouble, get some bad feelings. And of course, with the refugees, actually not happy about the situation, they sort of challenge what's going on. Then the police are straight in there with the people who are starting the trouble. So the French police are letting these people throw missiles and cause problems, but as soon as the refugees sort of say, hang on, what are you doing here? This isn't right, the French then actually join in with them. So I know there's that going on. In Calais itself, I think there's mixed feeling from the locals there about the sort of refugees in and around Calais. Even with the volunteers in Calais, there's so many beautiful volunteers from all over the world that's coming to sort of help out in the camps of Dunkirk and Calais. And I believe some of the local businesses are not happy about even the volunteers going there or going to one of the locals for a drink of an evening to sort of unwind and sort of share stories. So some of those have been made quite clear to some of the volunteers that they're not actually welcome.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that earlier. Did you come across? I was going to ask earlier, mate. Did you come across any grief from the authorities, the local authorities, at all?
Myself, not personally directed at me, but I have seen it. I've seen it lots with the French police lashing out and the way they talk to people and sort of laugh and jeer there's so much with the police that I can tell you actually from the stories that I've been told and stuff that I've witnessed. The endless tear gassing in the camps. Last night there was a big call for medics as the French police were tear gassing Calais, and there's so many photos of people with facial injuries and burns as a result of the tear gassing last night, and a lot of it's sort of unprovoked. Even in the women, there's a sort of a safe area for women and children and young families, and according to some of the volunteers that actually sort of stay on the camp, some nights it just rains down on them for no apparent reason.
So
why are they doing this to women and children? There's no. I can't understand the mentality behind it or the reasons why they're actually doing it. But I follow a lot of different posts and a lot of different sites and try to keep aware of what's actually going on. And it's just.
It's in terms of the French police, they have a record of quite extreme measures on occasions, which sometimes has provoked quite strong student riots and on occasions race riots. And the Front National in France, which is led by Marine Le Pen, was previously led by her father, Jean-Marie Le Pen. It's been sort of a French understanding that virtually the whole police force has supporters of the Front National as making up a percentage of their officers, and even more so in their paramilitary section of the police. So I think it's interesting to see that you think that there's potential complicity between some of the more extreme members of the French public, as it were, and of the French police. Where it's also, again, the oversight of the French police is something that they're not particularly known for. So when they are effectively using tear gas, is that being reported? Is that being questioned as to whether that's the effective way to deal with that or not? Or do they seem to have a more sort of militaristic way of looking at it?
More military, I think. Before I came away from Calais, it was said that the mayor of Calais was called into the French office for Parliament and stuff, because I think there were so many stories leaking out from Calais and Dunkirk about the actual situations going on there. Like real true to life stories, and I think that the mayor was called into office about that. And I think actually that there were plans for Dunkirk to change site in the beginning of this year, which would, they were going to have all these measures put into place for Dunkirk, and the people that are staying there have better facilities, better land. But I was reading a report from somebody earlier on, and it says that the French are not even willing to move sites now, and they put a total ban on tents, food, any aid at all actually going into Dunkirk. They've stopped everything. The people got tents submerged in water. It is truly shocking. The French just don't want to know about that site at all, and it's getting a lot worse and worse.
When you have that sort of situation, that's it's not just harrowing and unpleasant to live in. It's unsanitary. It becomes medically unsafe and unfit for any kind of human habitation.
Police, people are still trying to bring tents and warm clothes and blankets and wood so people can keep themselves warm, and the police are just turning them away. So some of the volunteers, bless them, they're waiting for nightfall. They cause a little distraction one end, and then they're trying to smuggle tents through the wooded areas of a night time just to try and get some help to these people. So the volunteers are putting themselves at risk, for the sake of these people really suffering. If you look at the sites now showing the picture of Dunkirk, it's completely sort of underwater, and people are having to sleep in tents that are got more, so much water inside the tent. It's horrendous.
And how many souls do you think are there in Dunkirk and Calais?
I think Dunkirk, they're looking at 2,500 to 3,000. That's what I was told last. And I think there's about up to 8,000 in Calais. The MSF, the French medical people that's out there at the moment.
Médecins Sans Frontières.
Yeah, there's a report that was put up 9 hours ago by a guy who's doing construction work, and basically they're saying that actually regarding the situation where they're not allowing them to move to another site now, they're going to take it upon themselves to find a site for these people, because they cannot and will not just sit back and let what's happening carry on, because it's not right. It's absolutely degrading. There's nothing for these people apart from the mud they stand in. So that these French medical people are saying, actually, we'll find you a site and we'll take this on board ourselves. And there's a report that I'm reading now, and they say they will not sit by and see the refugees in Dunkirk die in this manner. It's inhumane. It shouldn't be happening in this day and age.
Yeah, and
the French police and the governments, really have a lot to answer for here. They really need to be pulled in. And there's also a petition that's just been put up for the the barriers to be brought down in Dunkirk and for people to bring in aid. There's a petition that needs to be signed. So as many of you guys, if you can sort of seek out this petition and get it signed, that's the very basic thing we can do to help these people sign the petition, and so it gets the government to say, actually, the people don't want to sit back and watch this happen. The French medical people are saying, we're not even going to stand back and let you do this. We'll find another site for these people, regardless of you telling us no. We're going to do it. The people will stand and fight this. You guys need to look on these sites.
A question from the chat room for you, I've just lost it there. My chat room scrolled up. Anyway, I know what it was. But I was just trying to... do you think that most people in the Calais or Dunkirk camp would prefer to return to their own home?
Well, let's look at it this way. When you've lost most of your family through the bombing, the killings, the villages and the cities that they live in are completely down to rubble and still being bombed and attacked. Who would want to go back to that?
So they haven't got a home anymore, is what you're saying. There is nothing to go back to apart
from the fear of losing their life. That's why these people are coming across to look for a safe place to live. The media portrays it as they want to come over for our benefits, to take over our houses, to do this and that. These people just want a safe place to live and to, contribute to the country that they're living in. These people it's heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking. I recommend you all guys to look up some of these sites, like the building support through shelter. Look at all the refugee sites that people are putting up, the pictures. The stories that people are in the camps daily working to support these brothers and sisters of ours. That's how I see them. They are brothers and sisters from all over the world. I know people coming. I've met people in Calais in the warehouse, Americans. There's people coming from Tokyo. I've met so many different nationalities just coming to Calais to give up so much of their time to support our brothers and sisters. There is beautiful work happening in amongst all the chaos as well. There are structures being put together in Calais. I think Dunkirk at the moment is where things really need to be focused, because they've just closed the gates on anything and everything.
It sounds like the local conditions there are really getting in necessity of being taken very, very, very seriously. Yeah. And it's reassuring that MSF, Médecins Sans Frontières, which is Doctors Without Borders, which is, I guess, like the French equivalent of the Red Cross.
Yeah.
I'm finding it sort of quite hard to reconcile that, they're saying that they need the camps moved, but yet it seems that the police are battening down the camps, so that, they're not able to get the support they need just to exist. I mean, so have you seen the sort of engagement and I guess any oversight of the police? I mean, we've touched on them, but also the NGOs and the charities that you saw in action there.
There's a lot of good charities helping out there. The main charities, like you think that would be there, like the British Red Cross, the Red Cross, some of these big organisations, you would have thought they would be there, in the thick of it. But actually, where are these guys? What's going? Why are they not being seen? Why are they not helping?
Wasn't that
to do with the politics? Where are these big, ones that advertise all across the media, like, will you help all these people? Where are they?
Well, I think it comes down to the French government. If they actually admit publicly that there's an issue, then it has to be dealt with. If they keep on brushing it under the carpet, then they don't have to. They don't want to involve the big charities, the public charities.
Well, I think the time will come that actually they cannot just keep brushing it under the carpet.
And I think that's why it's...
cannot just do that any longer. It cannot go on like that.
And it's important to hear that some charities, I know Aid Box are out there. You've mentioned a couple already this evening. People in Motion. And I think that, especially with some of the big paychecks that have been claimed by some of the big charities, bigwigs, and managing directors and such like of hundreds of thousands of pounds a year, which is getting paid before there's even flood relief in the north of England or any support for what is clearly a serious humanitarian crisis on the north coast of France. So it's interesting, so that if people want to help and make sure that the support they're giving is to actually get in touch with the people who are being active on the ground. What groups of that nature have you seen?
Like I say, there are so many different groups of people from groups of charities are set up to help build structures. There's groups in there that sort of focus their attention on looking after the younger people, the mothers, the young mothers and families. There's groups help to set up them. There's lots of different groups that are all really working hard and trying to do everything they can. And like I say, there is some beautiful work out there. There's so many beautiful volunteers, and it makes me feel so proud to see that actually the people of the world are coming from all over to help support these people. Our brothers and sisters out there in the time. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody deserves in this day and age to be suffering like they are. Nobody.
And I'm glad there are, people who've, like yourself, who've been active enough to get up and say, actually, this doesn't need to be, and go and take action. And with people in that situation who've had a tough time, who are living in those conditions, they are going to be more prone to things like colds, infections,
yep.
The hypothermia even this time of year.
Yep.
So how have you felt have been the support to help them get treatment, the more vulnerable and sick people that are amongst those 10,000 plus in Dunkirk and Calais?
Well, from what I've seen, even with the French hospitals, there's one incident that I'll tell you about. A very young child, very, very poorly, a lot of respiratory complaints, a lot of stuff going on. The volunteers took this young baby and family to the hospital and said, look, this is a very ill child. They had to take them themselves because the ambulance service will not come out to the camps. They will not. So they thought, we'll take this baby to hospital and get this baby seen to. They turned this baby away. The volunteers had to drive this baby to Belgium to get seen.
Wow.
And it's like,
wow.
In this day and age, the humanity, a baby, it's no fault of his or hers.
Yeah.
How can you turn a baby away like this? There's a fire in the camp. A lot of people are trying to keep warm. They were using candles and like little gas cookers. There was a fire in the camp. Took out about 30 tents plus. A few gas canisters exploded. There could have been a real. That's pretty scary. Real big issue there. The fire brigade will not come out. They will not come out. So a group of people, I've forgotten the name of their charity. They basically put together a vehicle so they can leave in the camp as a fire truck. And people have sort of put money together to help put this vehicle together. So they've got their own little fire vehicle actually in the camp because the fire brigade won't come out, the ambulance service won't come out. What are people supposed to do there, And there are so many poorly people within the camp, so many poorly people, through like the weather conditions, the miles and miles of walking, sleeping with, trying to sleep with no real shelter, the constant worry about the cold and the wet. It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful.
And there are things that if the people who are supposed to be listening to us don't listen to us, then there are things that we can do, which is get in touch with the local groups and give them the support.
Yeah.
Because by the sounds of it, if we hadn't thought sort of 10 years ago, let's go and democratize the hell out of some countries a few thousand miles away, that we wouldn't have thousands of people sitting on the north of France in unsanitary conditions, and maybe we could have spent some of that cruise missile cash on putting roofs over people's heads and not having people sleep homeless, like I said, less than a mile away from Westminster.
Yeah. And people challenge me about what I'm doing out there and what I've seen. A lot of my sort of friends and people that I know are very supportive, and I'm really blessed to have so many good people behind me supporting me. But there are a few people that question why I'm doing it, why volunteers going out there to help them. Why? There's people suffering in this country. There's people suffering all over the world. But until you actually see the conditions and just how bad, it's shocking. And all these people that are, got a lot of things to say about it, a lot of angry voices. I challenge you all now just to take a look at some of these pictures on some of these websites. Go over for just an afternoon just to see what it's like in the camp. Feel the love that these people got, even with what they've been through, and what they've actually got. They're still happy to see you and give you a smile, shake your hand, say hello. These are people that just want somewhere to be safe. And I challenge all you people that think, you shouldn't be out there. Just take a couple of minutes out of your life just to look it up. Really, really look into these things.
Nice one.
And they're thinking, well, how can I help? I've got to work 24/7. I've got a young family. I can't, give any time. There's lots of different ways that people can help. There's promoting some of these charities, these organisations. That, if you can offer some sort of funding to help some of these groups that are setting up for shelter, food, the clothes that we all got a few clothes that we don't wear. Start up a collection, send over clothes and shelter, tents, whatever you can. There's lots of different ways you can help promote it. There's so many different ways that people can help.
And thanks for passing that message on, and I hope people are listening loud and clear. But being in the bunker below Westminster, my last question is just a quick one. Yeah. Do you have a message for the people in Westminster, up there in the House of Parliament and the House of Lords? What would you...
Cool. Yeah, I got several messages, to be fair. I think, these guys in Westminster, I'd love to get a coach load of them and say, right, come on, get out there, have a look. Tell me that what you're saying about these people and all the media blackouts, tell me that's right. Tell me that's the right thing to do. In your conscience, is that right? How can you let this happen? You guys need to wake up and see what the people are, saying to you. Your government, the people behind you are supposed to be back. See what they want. Let's help these people. The people will rise up all over the world, and I think love and peace and unity is what will win wars. This bombing, this killing, this craziness.
Thank you.
Some people say I'm an old hippie, whatever. But love and peace, it will win wars.
I'm totally with you on that one.
Yeah.
All we need to do is treat each other well.
Exactly.
Thanks
and
ever so much for coming on,
together.
Sol. We're out of time, but thank you ever so much for being here. It's been a fantastic show.
Thank you guys for, putting this out there, and all the people listening. Just take a minute out of your time and look it up. Just see what you can do to help.
Yeah, thanks, dude, man. You had it in one, stop bombing, stop being gritty and invest in humanity.
Okay.
Bless you all.
And so it's been a real experience to hear exactly what has been going on the ground, some of the challenges that our brothers and sisters from wherever they may hail from are facing, and putting us in the right direction. You also have a GoFundMe, which I strongly recommend people go and check out to help Sol do his work. He's on Facebook. His name is Soulfire. Go and check it out. But if you're here for the evening with Dark City, there's lots to look forward to. We've got the Dark City Cannabis Compassion Show coming up in just a moment, and this will be discussing the responsibility of being a caregiver, and that's with Bob, Sarah, Teresa, and the crew. Follow that, it's the return of the Captain Max Steel show with the truth about Bigfoot and how they got to Earth and how many there are. Max really gets stuck into that. And then tomorrow from 7, we've got the Pax Mundi show, which is one of the best researched on the internet. And Nigel has some really good bits of info to keep us all bang on the pulse. And at 9, it's the I Am show with the lovely Sarah.